Hello everyone, my name is SwingPoynt and welcome to Resident Evil Resistance. This is the multiplayer game bundled with Resident Evil 3. And we got a lot to talk about in this video because I haven't been talking about stuff because I've kind of been waiting. Because I think something's about to happen with this game just based off of how these patches have been rotating about. In this video, we're going to talk about the recent patch updates. Not just one, there's another one that might have snuck in there and you might not know about it. We're going to talk about an Annette build that I think works really well with what's currently going on. And then I'm going to show you a match of this Annette build. Okay? So, let's get into what happened, give you some backstory in case you haven't been keeping up on it. So, last week, I think, around June 12th. Yeah, it was my birthday, June 12th. They released the prison map update. Okay? And with that update, the new map came out, the prison map. New cosmetics came out. New balance changes. New balance changes came out. And then new equipment came out. What ended up happening with that was they dialed in a little too far on making the survivors good. They made it so they nerfed a lot of things about masterminds and they buffed a lot of things about survivors. And it tilted the whole meta of this game in a way where neither side really feels happy. Masterminds feel hopeless and survivors feel bored because they're so powerful now. They're like, I don't even have to try anymore. The only way we lose is if someone's dumb on our team. And that's not a fun way to play. And then on Masterminds, the only way you felt like you were winning was if somebody was dumb on the survivor side of the team. So I think Capcom saw that, or whoever takes a look at this stuff and we're like, we need to do something. People are mad and they're mad everywhere. And they started doing something about it. So I think they're going to continue to do things about it. But let's talk about the patch notes that just happened and see how it all filters in with Annette here, okay? So the big thing that just happened in the most recent patch, there was a patch that was after the June 12th update, which was a balance update, okay? So June 12th was the prison map. I think June 19th was this, oh God, we need to do something to fix this update. So on June 19th, they went ahead and adjusted some things with supply zombies, gun damage, and creature health. And creature health is going to be the topic of today's discussion. But to give you the changes real quick, supply zombie, they no longer give 30 seconds when you open the bag. Now they give like 15. And they have, I think, 3,000 health on base as opposed to 2,000. Okay? Now, let's get on to the creature health because the gun damage stuff, they took the MQ-11, they took the LE5. They buffed them way too much on June 12th. They brought him back down a little bit on June 19th. Creature health, though, we got a lot to talk about there. So let's take a look at what they did, because it's awesome for Annette. You know, it's pretty awesome for Daniel, too. So if you take a look here, this is the deck we're going to be running today. And I'll get more into why it is the way it is. And now on to these creatures. Crawling zombies, zombie infectious, dealers, partially armored zombies, and jesters all got a health bump. It's higher now. Tough zombies weren't touched. Lickers and dogs I don't think were touched. I don't think detonators were touched either. But the patch notes will be in the description, so you can always go take a look at those in case I misspeak here. But those zombies had a big boost to their health, and we're going to talk about the math behind it, because I know you guys like hearing that. But so you have some insight on how zombies work and how creature health works. Creatures don't have a set amount of health in this game. They have a range of health, okay? So they took that range and they bumped it up. So the creatures that got the health bump, before they had about 850 health apiece. The range is like from 800 to 900 or 800 to 890, and it moves around based off of RNG. But they have about 850 health in Area 1. Now that number goes up based on the area that you're in. That number goes up based on the equipment that you're using. Okay, so in Area 1, that's baseline. Area 2, it's like a 20% boost. So you take that, 850 and then multiply it by 1.2, and that's their Area 2 health. And then Area 3, you take the base number from Area 1 and then multiply that by 1.5, and then that's your Area 3 health. So it's like a 20% boost, and then there's a 50% boost, okay? That's how creature health is handled between the areas. Cameras do the same thing. They also go up in health as areas commence. But what they did was they took that 850-ish and they bumped it up to 1,300-ish. Okay? So that's really interesting for Annette here because of this enhancement thing that she's got going on. Okay, so we're going to talk about her skills, and we're going to talk about her equipment, and we're going to talk about the deck, and we'll talk about how all these changes come together and make it so we have a build that kind of makes sense. So let's start with Annette's skills. Okay, her area 3 skill is going to be Concentrated Enhancer. Her area 2 is going to be Tough Zombie Berserker Aura. Frankly, I feel like just about every Annette build ever is going to run those unless they're like, hey, I like dogs. But it's always going to be Concentrated. It's always going to be Tough Zombie Berserker. But now here's where things are kind of flipping around based off of what you might be used to with Annette. So instead of running Creature Efficiency, I'm going to run Enhancement because something I like to talk about often whenever there's changes with a game is follow the changes, follow the buffs, right? So if creatures got buffed on health, make it better, make it more awesome, make it overwhelming. Annette's really good at doing that. That's always been her thing, right? And now for her genetic mutation, we're going to be running Recovery instead of buffs. So this is going to kind of be like a doctor type Annette because she's going to be healing her creatures over the top. And what's really nice about what we're doing here is that not only are we mixing up what people are used to, we're going to be doing things that are new with the new equipment, which makes this build way better than it probably was in the past, okay? Because meta before was always run buffs. Why would you run recovery? Buffs is so good. Because buffs made it so that her enhancement was 50% stronger than any other mastermind. Well, they tuned that down to make it so that it's 30% now. And recovery makes a little bit more sense now that the creatures have more health, because the problem you were running into before was Sam or Becca would walk in and just one hit everything. So it doesn't matter if you can heal your creatures over the top if they're getting one shotted anyway. So with recovery now, every time you shoot your enhancement, it gives them 1,000 health. Also, furthermore, the reason why this build makes sense more is going to be in the equipment, okay? So this build makes way more sense than it ever did in the past. Onto her bioweapon skill, I run Bloodthirst to kind of really keep on with the theme of catching them off guard, okay? Also, equipment is going to play a factor in here. You can run Fury and it'll probably be fine, but I've been running Bloodthirst with this kind of just because I want to, but again, it catches people off guard. This whole build is catching people off guard, okay? And there's a way to know if somebody's running this build, and I'll talk to you about that, but let's get onto the equipment. Okay, so for the equipment here, there's a few things you can do and choices you can make, but this is what I like the most. Okay, so we're going to be running Resilient Skin 3, Fresh Blood 3, Modified Gear 2, Viral Canister 3. And this brings us to 19 of 20 equipment points. The reason why I'm doing this is because it affects many different parts of this build. We're not going full health. We're not going full infection. We're taking a little bit of everything and making it all work, okay? The ones that might be the most interesting to you, because they're new, are Fresh Blood and Modified Gear. You kind of have an idea of what Viral Canister does. It makes you more poisony. You have an idea of what Resilient Skin does. It makes you more tanky. I will talk about with poison, though, that they did change poison. It used to be that an infectious creature, so infectious zombie, tough zombie, whatever, whenever they would land a claw swipe or a bite, those zombies would do more infection than a regular zombie, because why wouldn't they? But they changed that. So now the only thing that infectious creatures do that's different than a regular creature is they have the aura around them, which is continuously poisoning things. But that works really well with this build. We're going to talk about it, okay? So, the reason why this is so interesting, the reason why this all works together really well is because of Fresh Blood and Modified Gear. So Modified Gear, it takes your unloading and loading of a gun or a firearm in the camera and it speeds it up. There's two of these. There's Modified Gear 2 and Modified Gear 1. We're only running Modified Gear 2. That's all we need for this build. What's nice about this is we're going to be running 3 enhancers in here. What I also am really happy about with running healing over the top, again, what exactly is it called? It is called recovery. With running recovery over the top, it makes it so that these don't really lose their luster in area 3. One of the problems with Annette in the past was you didn't want to have too many of these because they kind of clogged up your deck. But with Modified Gear, you can cycle them really quickly, and with recovery, they're still healing your creatures, which is awesome. That is such a nice thing to have in Area 3. It feels similar to Symbiosis Spencer when I was like, oh my gosh, we finally can do something with Spencer that doesn't rely on hitting a door. And then once we reach to Area 3, there's no doors to lock, there's no lights to turn off. And then one of his passives kind of loses its steam. Now, let's talk a little bit deeper here. Modified gear is a huge part of this because it's so slow to get in and out of your enhancers. With modified gear, it speeds everything up, makes her much more quick, vicious, makes it easier for her to pounce. Speaking of pouncing, let's talk about Fresh Blood. Fresh Blood takes the AI in this game and makes it so that creatures are more likely to bite. So just imagine your creatures, and the more of them there are, well, they're really likely to bite now, so you can hold down a lot of survivors without having to control these zombies. The worst thing in the world is when you have a whole room full of zombies, and then they all just sort of like, ugh, and the survivors walk by. Fresh Blood takes that and makes it so they're more likely to bite, more likely to grab, and hold people down for you instead of you having to manually control zombies, which is great. And the reason why we're running Viral Canister is because of that overwhelming presence that it causes. Every single creature that bites is gonna do a lot more poison damage. Every single creature that swipes is gonna do a lot more poison damage. If they're standing in the aura for too long, it's gonna do more poison to them because of Viral Canister 3. And part of how this Annette works, like the real kicker with her, is it tricks people. You're trying to make them play into their habits and make them behave the way that they're used to behaving, okay? Because she can heal over the top, and because all these creatures got a health buff, and you're buffing the health with your equipment here, you can make these survivors more often than not stand in place and do something foolish. So many times I've seen a Sam or a Tyrone just beaten on a creature, or you see a Becca that's just way too committed to taking out a creature. And because you're healing over the top, that opens up the opportunity for creatures to recover once they're on the ground and go ahead and try to bite somebody. It makes it so that these people that are using melee stick in the poison aura for way longer than they think they're going to, because they're just sitting there beating on the zombie thinking that eventually they're going to get like a +5 or a +10 up on the timer to show that the creature's dead. But you keep healing them over the top along with this poison, they're going to get poisoned. And having that poison go on, having them waste all those resources of trying to beat down your creatures, and just it feels like they're beating up against a wall rather than actually defeating these creatures, and then wasting their time as they do that, and then opening up opportunities for your creatures to bite. By the way, creatures that are much more likely to bite now with Fresh Blood, everything comes together really, really well. And I love that about this deck. I love that about this build. Now let's go into the deck here. What's really nice about this deck is that everything matters. There's not going to be a point where you're like, ugh, well, I wish I didn't have this anymore. What you might notice is we're not running lickers. I still have lickers when I play. I keep them in my preset. Especially for Area 3 with Concentrated Enhancer. You're going to want to keep them alive with these enhancers over the top. But since this is all about biting and overwhelming, and since we're not really running a whole lot of stuff in our deck that reduces creature cost, I mean, frankly, we're really only running creature mod. We're not running creature efficiency, and we don't have energy booster in our deck. This is more about getting a bunch of creatures out. All of them are pretty tanky, and I can keep healing them. And they're all going to be buffed up through the entirety of the match, which is great. And if I want to, I can manually control them to cause more trouble. Something you're going to want to do with this is something that I talked about in the sandwich build, where you're just continuously biting over and over again. And they made it so that creatures don't get knocked back anymore when somebody pushes off a bite. At least your controlled creatures don't. If you're controlling a creature and let's say Sam pushes a zombie off of him, your controlled creature's like, haha, didn't feel a thing. And just, you can go chain bite. And chain biting is a really big part of this Annette build as well. Okay? And to give you an idea of how significant these changes are with the health, before we get into our match here. Let's say they had about 850 health before, right? Okay. So, with what we're currently running, let's just show you how big of a change that is. So let's say we had 850 health, right? And then you multiply that by 1.82, which is, you know, what enhancement's gonna bring and what Resilient Skin 3 is gonna bring. That would bring these creatures' health to about 1,500. Okay? And then by the time they reach Area 3, that would bring their health to about 2,300. Okay? Now, just with what we're running here, if you want to run a tankier health build, you go right ahead. But now let's take that 1300 that they buffed it up to, and then multiply that by 1.82. Okay? And then take that number and multiply that by 1.5 to get you area 3. Well, now instead of running at 2300 health, they have about 3500 health in area 3. That's a big boost. And, you know, I didn't say it before, but area 2 is now going to have 2300 health or 2400 health instead of around 1500. So just picture all these zombies you're putting out constantly. That's going to drain their economy. It's going to make it so you can actually heal them so they don't just get one shot by everything. And it's just going to be way more time consuming for them to actually take these zombies down if they choose to. Now, something I always feel like I need to talk about when you come up with a build here is how to counter it, right? There's a few ways to counter this build, and then we'll show you a match that we did on PS4, actually. I couldn't get my PC sound to work last night, and I did a bunch of recording on PS4. And it works good on PS4. I did try this on PC, and it did work on PC. I don't think this build is unbeatable, especially once I tell you how to counter it, but I think you're going to have a lot more success with it than you would have ever thought. Okay? Well, let's talk about how to counter it. One of the big things with countering builds is just knowing that they're happening. And a really easy way to tell that this build is happening is when she shoots her enhancers. When she shoots her enhancers, you can tell if they're being healed or if they're just being buffed. You'll see a little green that kind of looks like a region that you would see in other games. You see like a green mist that shows up. That is different than, you know, the region mist that shows up here, the actual enhancer region. But there's an additional green little twinkle that shows up on the creatures, and that's how you can tell they're being healed rather than just buffed. So if you see that, make sure you don't fall into the trap of trying to fight everything that she's healing. Step away from it for a bit, or just try to stun and run. Now let's talk about the other way that you go ahead and counter this, which is the stun and run. One of the best things that you can do to Annette for yourself is don't deal with her. She's gonna drain your resources. That's what she's always been about. Don't fight her. Fight her when you have to. Throw a flashbang down or use a Martin and just run by. Or have Sam use his fists and just be really efficient at taking things down. Be efficient. Run Sniper Becca, run Sam, run Martin. All of these people are really, really good at keeping their resources high and stunning Annette. Becca can critical hit stun. She doesn't do it as well as she used to. They did nerf that. Sam can fist stun, and Annette and Martin, excuse me, can use his alts and his mines. Annette loses to crowd control. So if you're throwing a flashbang down, if you're using a kick from Tyrone, if you're using a dash punch, go ahead, get that stun in and keep moving. Make it so she's going to regret what she's doing. Now, Annette can still really bring it, especially if she's going to control creatures. But one of the best things that you can do to counter her is just ignore her. People need to do that more in this game if you want to beat some of these masterminds, especially like Dan. Just ignore him. Just walk right by him. He's fine. And that's gonna prove very useful to you, because especially when you consider how this build's all about biting, well, you can't bite them if they're not next to you. So just ignore her and run by her. And the other thing that's really good against this build here is Jan. Jan became a little psycho with this most recent patch in the worst way possible. And she can two-shot cameras now. So if you take out her cameras, I mean, this whole thing is about healing over the top, right? But again, people don't think about cameras with Annette. But with the way this Annette build works is she heals over the top by using her enhancer rounds. If you shoot her cameras, she can't do anything. So as an Annette player, when you know that they're pressuring your cameras, that's the one you have to go ahead and be like, well, gonna lose my camera, get into a creature, try to do damage for a little while, and hopefully my camera's recovered by the time the creature's dead. That's kind of how you deal with that as Annette. But again, Jan's really good at dealing with her, and pretty much anybody who has any sort of crowd control is really good at dealing with Annette as well. Oh, also, debuff Val. Forgot about debuff Val, because she's already so atrocious with her infinite grenades that she has. But debuff Val also really helps, because she can just remove buffs on these creatures. I will say that because you can cycle your enhancer so much, debuff Val has more work to do than she typically does. But again, debuff Val is really good against Annette as well. So there's a lot of ways to counter this build. I do think it can be really successful though. So what I'm going to show you now is what I think is a good match to show off what this build's about. I'm not always looking for the sweatiest, hardest match that you can find, and I'm not looking for a stomp. I'm looking for a match that really shows off what we talked about in the video, okay? So this is going to be from our Twitch live streams, twitch.tv/SwingPoynt. Link will be in the description. We stream there every single night. And here is a match that we did with Dr. Annette. What keeps happening is they'll reach a point where I'm like, okay, you already got what you need from objective. So at that point, it's just, okay, who can I bite? Who can I slow down? Who can I bite? Who can I bite? Who can I bite? Who can I bite? It's all about the bite, man.
We never meant for this to happen. Even as you fight, your end draws closer.
Remember when this thing would auto-unload and I hated it? Oh boy.
Make your peace. Activating that will take both your time and energy.
Little speedsters here, huh?
The door's locked. Must fix this myself. Your continued efforts only place humanity in greater danger.
Okay, boys, what are you doing over here? What? Why did none of those hit this thing?
The gate is open.
Okay,
But
that's
I will not
dumb.
allow you to go any
I
further.
mean, I guess it doesn't matter they're running away, but like... That was dumb. It makes me mad. Yeah, like, again, it holds up. Like,
You
Sam
may
just
be
goes ahead and wrecks
slightly
him.
nearer to freedom, but I will not.
That's not something that's super new here. Like,
Cannot let you reach it.
I was like, guys, we're just not running into Sam, and, you know, exactly what's going on here.
Each step they take brings you closer to death.
I really want to get poisoned in here. Here it is. Oh, I cannot get an enhancer!
But the
There it
virus
is.
will still be eating you for a bit.
Nah, bolted shut.
Oh my god, grab like you. Oh, you stupid thing.
Even as you fight, your end draws closer.
Okay. You're ignoring it. I'll take it. Oh my god.
William, we must end this terrible chapter.
There it is. really sucks.
Their death was necessary. I will see to your termination myself.
Nice. Nice combo here.
Escape.
What's happened there? That sucks. Get me out. That was a good play.
I must destroy William's legacy to save the world. And so I must stop you. I will overcome your resistance with strength. Do not imagine you can make
Hopefully
it out
only
in
one was on
time.
there, so they only got 15 for it. Ah, 2, come on! I think Tyrone used second wind to get up, yeah. Is that the spray gun or a second wind? I'm not really sure.
Can't you feel the virus taking hold? You must let me put an end to you. Let them destroy you and this will end. Now you will understand why I must destroy all of Umbrella's works.
Give me that 15. Don't know what you're doing, Tyrone.
Just give in.
Oh my god, I thought it was upstairs. Oh, I thought it was upstairs and I was waiting for him to do that. Oh, it is upstairs now. Oh, either way, they're gonna be coughing a ton.
William, help me eradicate all trace of our past, and then I shall also lay you to rest.
Gonna stand in the way.
Best laid plans.
Pixel sword, yeah, it's a new one. They rushed through pretty quick. Look at that match was done in 740. Let me know what you guys thought of this build. Let me know if you have any success with it. I really enjoy it. It's kind of my preferred way to play Annette right now because it's really good at countering Molotov Valerie because she does so much damage over the top and splash. But you can splash back with the enhancers, and I think that's really nice. And I also think there's going to be more changes coming that will further, you know, shift the balance of either side. I'm not really sure what these changes are going to be, but just based off of how they talked about it on Twitter in the patch notes, it looked like they were like, hey, we're working on another patch, but we just wanted to get this one out quickly because we care, which I think is really cool. And I think that people being patient with them is something that I'm really proud of to see in this community. They're working really hard. They care a lot. It's so obvious. And again, anybody who's a fan of this game knows that this game has way more treasure to it than we ever thought it would. And that's because, you know, these people care. The people that make this game care. So that's all I got. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you. And then I'll see you in the next video that we do around here.